Hello everybody, today we'll be doing the chapter 3 of ECCA Business and Technology F1 Organizational Culture in Business. Before watching this video, there is a playlist in the description box below of the rest of the chapters I've covered so far. So make sure you watch them before you watch this. And I'm not following the sequential order of the books, that's only because you can understand it better this way. But don't worry, I'll be covering all the chapters. Also, I'm referring to Kaplan's study text in this video. Organizational culture in business. So this is a very easy and a very basic chapter. We'll be completing it very with an ease. This is what we're going to learn. These are the chapter learning objectives. So let's begin. Organizational culture. Components, influences, and writers. This is what we're going to cover in the following lecture. So what is organizational culture? There are many definitions of corporate culture. These include the specific collection of values and norms that are shared by people and groups in an organization and that control the way they interact with each other and with stakeholders outside the organization. So this is the definition given by Hills and Jones. The way we do things around here. This is given by Handy. Ultimately, culture means the sum total of all the beliefs, attitudes, norms, and customs that prevail within an organization. Each organization will have its own distinctive cultures and behaviors acceptable in one organizational culture may be inappropriate in another. For example, some companies will expect staff to undertake additional work in their own time while others will not. Also, cultures develop over time and can change instantly as a result of a single major event, death of company founder, threatened takeover, etc. So we know what organizational culture is. The values, the norms, the procedures, the rules, the beliefs which are followed by the organizations. Components of culture. There are three key elements in any organization's culture. So what are the three components? The first one is a set of norms and behavior. We've just discussed this. Symbols and symbolic actions. So there are various symbols and symbolic actions which every organization has. A set of shared values and beliefs. This also we've done. Let's go into the detail of the following. Norms guide people's behavior, suggesting what is or what is not appropriate. Example, informal dress codes. So norms are basically the rules and regulations which are accepted in the organization. Symbols or symbolic action. So in some organization, appreciation or making the employees feel special is one of the symbolic action. For example, rituals such as buying the officer cake on your birthday. Shared values and beliefs underlie the culture by identifying what is important, a belief in the importance of people as individuals. So what are the three components of organizational culture? A set of norms and behavior, symbols and symbolic actions, a set of shared values and beliefs. The factors that shape the culture of an organization. So there are 6 major influences on the culture of an organization, which is the size of the organization, technology which is used, diversity, age, history and ownership. Size, technology, diversity, age, history and ownership. So these are the main factors that shape culture. Size. How large is the organization in terms of the physical size as well as the employee numbers and the terms of turnover. Technology. How technologically advanced is the organization in terms of the product or productive processes. Diversity. How diverse is the company in terms of product range, geographical spread, cultural makeup of its stakeholders. Age. How old is the business or the managers of the business? Do its strategic level decision makers have experience to draw upon? History. What worked in the past? Do decision makers have past successes to draw upon, or are they willing to learn from their mistakes? Ownership. Is the organization owned by a sole trader? Are there a small number of institutional shareholders, or are there a large number of small shareholders? Other influences on culture. There are other more stable influences. The degree of individual initiative, is it encouraged or decisions always referred upwards? So what is the degree of the individual initiative? How much is an individual allowed to participate? The degree of risk tolerance. Are the managers only allowed to follow low risk strategies, or are they allowed to take some risks? Clarity of direction. Is there a clear focus? Are there clear objectives and goals and performance expectations? The degree of integration between groups. Are different units encouraged to work together? Are management aloof or approachable? Is communication clear to the lower level staff? The reward system. Are individuals rewarded for succeeding? Are rewards based on performance criteria? Conflict tolerance. Are employees encouraged to air grievances? Communication patterns. Is there a formal hierarchy of an informal or network? Formalization of clothing and office layout. Are there strict rules, or what's the situation? The kind of people employed, graduates, young, old, etc. So these are the categories, these are the things which affect the culture or the organization. Writers on culture. So there are three writers which we have to learn in these chapters who have written on the organizational culture. So they are Schein, Handy, and Hofstede. So we learn about their theories or their ideologies. It's very easy, just continue the chapter with me and make notes of it, or try to just understand what I'm saying. It's really easy. You'll just learn the entire chapter by the end of this video. Schein. So Schein argues that the first leaders of a company create its culture. Future leaders will only be selected if they support this original culture. Thus, the link between culture and leadership is very strong, as it can be difficult to change. So according to Schein believes that the initial owners or the first leaders of the company only create the culture, and the succeeding leaders will be selected only if they accept and follow the culture which has been set by the initial leaders. Schein further commented that if leaders are to lead, it is essential that they understand the culture of the organization. In order to try and define culture, Schein described three levels. Artifacts. These are the aspects of culture that can be easily seen. Example, the way that people dress. So the first thing is artifacts. Artifacts is anything which can be seen clearly. That's something which can be seen clearly, like the aspects of culture which are physically seen, like the way they dress. Espoused values. These are the strategies and goals of an organization, including company slogans. So espoused values include the goals of the organizations and the various strategies of the organization. Basic assumptions and values. These are difficult to identify, as they are unseen and exist mainly at the unconscious level. So what has Schein said? Schein has said, first thing, that the first leaders only make the culture, and he believed in three things, which is artifacts, espoused values, and basic values and assumptions. So artifacts, what are artifacts? These are the factors which are not seen to the eye, which are seen to the eye. Artifacts are what can be seen through the eyes, like the way people dress. Espoused values are the strategies and goals of the organization, and basic assumptions and values are unseen and they exist on an unconscious level. New employees find the last level of culture the most difficult to understand, and lack of understanding of the basic values is one of the main contributors to failures when trying to implement change. Which of the following would not be classified by Schein as an artifact? So what were artifacts again? The things which can be seen. Dress codes in an organization, it is an artifact. Design of organization's premises, this is also an artifact since it can be seen. Stated aim of the organization to improve customer service. Has Schein mentioned anything like this earlier? No. So that's the answer. Let's still see the D part. Office facilities provided by the organization, that also can be seen. So the answer is C, which would be classified as one of the organization's espoused values. Espoused values is about customer service, etc. What was espoused values again? Strategies and goals of the organization. So that was it about Schein. Now we'll come to Handy. Handy popularized 4 cultural types. First one is the power culture, then we have role culture, task culture, and person culture. That is given by whom? Handy. So what does Handy mean by power culture? Power culture is denoted by the Greek god Zeus. Here there is one major sources of power and influence. For example, in a small owner-managed business, The owner may strive to maintain absolute control over subordinates. There may be few procedures and rules of a formal kind as staff take direction directly from the owner. Note that this is often found in organizations with an entrepreneurial structure. Okay, so what is power culture? Power culture is where the owner takes a lot of power and the organization is done where, like, the organization is run where the main factor is power, where the heads or the leaders or the managers or the top level, they have a lot of power over the subordinates. So that is power culture, which is denoted by the Greek word Zeus. Power culture, Greek word Zeus. Now we have role culture, which is denoted by the Greek god Apollo. In this version of culture, people describe their job by its duties, not by its purpose. So, job descriptions dictate the way we do things around here. This would be seen in a bureaucratic organization where the structure determines the authority and responsibility of individuals, and there is a strong emphasis on hierarchy and status. This tends to be most effective in stable environments where the work performed by employees rarely changes. So, in role culture, the focus is on how the people, not on the purpose of what they're doing, but it is based on what role or what job the people do around here. So, the role culture is based on the role. So, it is mainly seen in bureaucratic organizations and it is denoted by the Greek god Apollo, which is role culture. Then we have the task culture, which is denoted by the Greek god Athena. The emphasis here is on achieving the particular task at hand, and staff may need to be flexible to ensure deadlines are met. People therefore describe their positions in terms of the results they are achieving. Nothing is allowed to get in the way of task accomplishment. This is best seen in project teams that exists for a specific task. So task culture is defined by the Greek god, denoted by the Greek god Athena. So in the task culture, everything is based on a particular task which is at hand. So the task which needs to be done. Now we have person culture, which is denoted by the Greek god Dionysius. So person culture is denoted by the Greek god Dionysius. This is characterized by the fact that it exists to satisfy the requirements of particular individuals involved in the organizations. So, person culture is when it is characterized by the fact that it is existing to satisfy the needs of the people involved in the organization. The person culture is to be found in a small, highly participatory organization. So, the person culture is to be found in a small, highly participatory organization where individuals undertake all the duties themselves, for example, a barrister in chambers. The person culture is to be found in a small, highly participatory organization where individuals undertake all the duties themselves. So, person culture is where the emphasis is based on the needs of the people, which is denoted by the Greek god Dionysus. So we've done the cultures by handy. There are 4 cultures. Power culture, which is denoted by Greek god Zeus and it focuses on the power. Role culture, which is denoted by the Greek god Apollo, which is based on the role, which is seen in bureaucratic organizations. And then we have task culture, denoted by Athena, and it is based on achieving a particular task at hand. And then we have person culture, which is denoted by Greek god Dionysius, to satisfy the requirements of particular individuals. Test your understanding too. Identify the correct statement regarding handy's cultural types of the following. Role cultures tend to focus on the needs of the individuals working on the organization. This is false. Needs is done by people culture. Power culture tend to be bureaucratic organizations with large number of powerful managers. Bureaucratic organization is not done in power culture. Bureaucratic organization is done in role culture. We've seen it. Person cultures tend to develop in small and highly participatory organizations. Yes, that is true. Let's still see the 4th one. Role cultures normally require staff to be flexible in order to ensure deadlines are met. That hasn't been mentioned anywhere. Identify two disadvantages that a task culture could create for an organization. So, a task culture is where nothing is allowed to get in the way of completing the task. We've seen that. So, this would have, lead to high levels of stress. So, it would lead to high levels of stress, and quality might be compromised because we need to get the task done in a hurry, so the quality might be compromised. And people feeling that their individual needs are suppressed by the needs of the task, feeling pressurized. So, people might start to feel pressurized. Moving on, we have Hofstede. Hofstede looked for national differences between over 100,000 of IBM's employees in different parts of the world in an attempt to find aspects of culture that might influence business behavior. So he found four traits or cultural dimensions. These are found by Hofstede. Individualism versus collectivism. So this is what he's seen. He has seen an IBM project which he had taken. So individualism versus collectivism looks at the extent to which people are integrated into groups. Some cultures are more cohesive than others. Example, Anglo-Saxon cultures are generally more individualistic than the collectivist cultures of South America. High individualism indicates that the staff expect to be assessed on their own achievements and performance. Low individualism or collectivism would mean that the staff expects to be assessed on a group basis and prefer the organization to set group goals. So I think that was self-explanatory. Individualism is when somebody is like individual. Collectivism is when there is low individualism, where people like to be assessed on a group basis. Collectivism is when everyone is collective, everyone is together, and that's it. Uncertainty avoidance, or UA index, deals with a society's tolerance for uncertainty and ambiguity. Example, France and Japan use bureaucracy to reduce uncertainty because they dislike it. High uncertainty avoidance will not like to act outside their normal job descriptions or roles. So, when there are high uncertainty avoidance index, they would not like to do something which is outside their normal job descriptions because they would not like to take risk. They prefer to be directed by management and like formal rules and guidelines. So, where there is high uncertainty index, they would like to have some rules and procedures and management, right? Low uncertainty avoidance cultures, low UA cultures, will be prepared to take more risk and go beyond their comfort zones. They tend to dislike bureaucracy as it stifles initiative. So bureaucracy stifles initiative because there is a guideline set and there are rules, but they dislike bureaucracy, low UA cultures. Hope that's clear. Power distance index, the extent to which the less powerful members of the organizations and institutions accept and expect that power is distributed unequally. Example, in South American societies, differences in power were tolerated more than the North European cultures. So, power distance cultures. So, when places or when certain localities or organizations, they are okay with the fact that power is distributed unequally. That's the thing. High power distance culture expect to answer to powerful manager and do not expect to have any democratic input into decisions. Low power distance cultures expect to be involved with the decision making process and want less direct supervision by managers. So when there is high PD or high power distance, they're okay with the if they don't have any say in their decisions, they're okay with that. But when somebody has a low PD or a low power distance index, they want to be involved in the decision making process. Masculinity by versus femininity. A masculine culture is one where distinction between the roles and values of the gender is large, and males focus on work, power, and success. Example, in the Japanese culture, whereas in feminine culture such as Finland, the differences between the gender roles is much smaller. So, masculine culture is where there's a distinction between roles, like a lot, and a feminine culture is where that's not there. Employees in masculine culture can be motivated by offering them job titles, increased status, and pay rises, and this is what the culture values. Staff in feminine cultures will be motivated by more work life balance, quality of life, and relationships at work. More recently, two other dimensions have been added to Hofstede model, so which is long-term orientation versus short-term orientation. Societies with long-term orientation focus on future rewards with a particular focus on saving, persistence, and ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Short term oriented cultures focus on past, present concerns such as respect for tradition, social obligations, and saving face. So, I hope that's clear. Let's read the long term orientation versus short term orientation again. Societies with a long term orientation focus on future rewards with a particular focus on saving, persistence, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Short term orientated culture focus on past and present concerns such as respect for tradition, social obligations. So when an organization focuses on past and present, it is short term oriented culture. When an organization focuses on the future, it is long term orientation. Indulgence versus restraint. So now we have indulgence versus restraint. Indulgent societies allow relatively free gratification of basic and natural human rights related to enjoying life and having fun. More restrained societies suppress the gratification of needs and regulate it by means of strict social norms. So, indulgent societies are those organizations where they allow the people to enjoy, they allow the people to have fun. They are indulgent societies, they allow people to enjoy. Whereas restrained societies are those where the gratification is like restricted by social norms and rules and various guidelines. Let's just quickly revise what we've seen in Hofstede. We saw individualism versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, power distance index, masculinity versus femininity. Then the other two new added are long term versus short term and indulgence versus restraint. Test your understanding. 4. Looking at the Hofstede traits, choose the classification that most closely fits Great Britain: individualistic or collective, large power distance or small, masculine or feminine. So the points can be debated because the culture is changing, but Great Britain is probably, we know that the Britain is individualistic and the power distance is small and there are masculine roles. Why is the power distance small? Because people are not okay with being not involved in the decision making process. Okay. Anna has recently moved to a country A to head up a newly created research team. She quickly discovers that her staff seems unwilling to make major decisions for themselves and expect her to monitor their work closely. Which of the following features of Hofstede's cultural dimensions are Anna's staff demonstrating? So they are demonstrating. What are they demonstrating? The workers are demonstrating a dislike of uncertainty. So note that if they had low power distance, they would want Anna to supervise their work slowly. There is insufficient information available to conclude on masculinity on and individualism. That has not been mentioned clearly. So they just saw that the staff are unwilling to make major decisions, which means they don't want to take uncertainty. They do so. The answer is C: high uncertainty avoidance. They don't want any uncertainty. The informal organization and its relationship with the formal organization. In the last chapter, we looked at the concept of the formal structures of an organization. These have been designed by management to try and ensure that the organization meets its goals. Now let's see what informal organization are. The informal organization is the network of relationship that exist within an organization, but it's informal. This network evolves over time and tends to arise through common interests and friendships between the members of staff. These relationships are often across divisions. An informal organization will be present to some degree within all the formal organizations. Think of the informal organization as being an aspect of the organization's culture. What are the advantages and the disadvantages of having an informal organization? So, informal relationships. Just compare it with your school or your college, you'll be able to understand. Advantage: Better motivation. Since we are friends, it's better, right? Or better motivation. Better communication, since we are connected to everybody. Provision of social control. So we have a provision of social control as well. What are disadvantages? So we might be distracted, so it might lead to some inefficiency. Opposition to change can be intensified. So if there is an opposition to change, it can be intensified since many people come together. The grapevine effect. Grapevine effect is when one person tells someone something, they tell it to someone, they tell it to someone. So, where potentially inaccurate information or rumors is spread through the informal organization. And we have conformity. Conformity is when people don't stay faithful to the organization. Hope that's clear. Now, what we've just discussed, it's just done here in detail. Advantages. If managers can work with the informal groups within their department, there should be higher levels of motivations and productivity. Interdivisional communication should be better through the informal network. This could lead to increased innovation, which should help the company succeed. The informal organization may also help maintain conformity in the organization. For example, employees will be unlikely to dress too casually if others in the company are likely to disapprove. Disadvantages. If the formal structure is in conflict with the informal structure, then the organization may end up being inefficient at meeting its objectives. This can arise due to formal lines of communication being blocked, as informal lines of communication are more efficient. If managers try to implement change, they may find opposition from not only the formal but also the informal organization. Change in one decision may lead to company wide unrest. The informal organizations may also encourage conformity. This means that the employees may be unwilling to perform too well. This will harm the efficiency of the organization. Now we have test your understanding 6. Which of the following statements are correct? Informal relationship are shown on organizational chart. False. Informal relationship within an organization can be across division. True. So only 2 is true. So the answer is B. Now we have test your understanding 6. We have done the test your understanding 6. The informal organization can either enhance or hold back the business. Managers need to be aware of the informal structure and ensure that they adapt the formal structure to complement the informal one. Maintain a looser formal structure so that informal structure can thrive. At the very least, take account of the informal structure in the decision making. If a manufacturing department has split itself into two informal groups and output is in decline, the declining output could have nothing to do with the formal structure, but be due to lack of integration of the whole division due to the opposing groups. Rather than changing the formal structure, management could, for example, mix members of two cliques on training courses and so try to reduce the impact of the informal organization. So, this is what we've seen in the chapter so far. Wasn't that really easy? Okay, let's just do the practice questions quickly. According to Schein, there is a strong, very quickly, very quickly. According to Schein, there is a strong link between culture and culture and leadership. Culture and what? Culture and leadership. H company is analyzing its corporate culture. It has found that many of its staff believe that the main purpose of the company is to simply earn as much as profit as possible, and therefore they're failing. What is identified? So this is basic assumptions and values. What is 8? Basic assumptions and values. Country B has a standing army of 10,000 soldiers. Each soldier has a series of closely defined duties and tasks that they are expected to fulfill on a regular basis. The accomplishment of these tasks is monitored by a highly bureaucratic administration. Non-compliance with the rules is punished, and soldiers are not expected to go beyond the duties they have been set. So what is this? This is the role culture. Staff in a country G dislike their managers interfering in their work, which is what? Test your understanding 10. The answer is low power distance. The Bloom family own a chain of stores in Country Edge. They are aware that their staff dislike using new technology as it conflicts with their long held working practices, which is test your understanding 11. The answer is B. A culture with a short term orientation is concerned with maintaining tradition. A long term oriented culture is willing to adapt. So it is short term orientation. Information may be passed informally between individuals. What is this rumor effect? Grapevine effect. Test your understanding 13. This is a longer one. Read it carefully, then I'll discuss the answer. Pause the video and answer it. I'm writing the answers down here. C2, B1, A2, D1. Pause the video and answer. I hope it's clear. If you have any doubts, you can drop it down in the comment section below. So that is it. We're done with this chapter. I hope you understood the chapter. Make sure to check out the playlist in the description box below. In the following videos, we will also be doing the exam kit. Thank you.